Ambition inspired his journey. But nature changed his destiny. One survivor. One island. Two warriors. Against all odds. Robinson Crusoe.
Robinson Crusoe was published in 1719, and his story is probably the most famous adventure story in English literature. So the plot tells the story of a man who is shipwrecked off a desert island where he spends 28 years before being rescued. The story is divided into 3 parts. In the first part, we are told briefly about Crusoe's early life and about how he runs away from home to sea rather than accept the life of leisure that his father promises him. After a series of adventures, Crusoe finds himself in Brazil. There he becomes a plantation owner. He doesn't really like it, but brings him a certain prosperity. From there, from Brazil, he sets off for Africa with other plantation owners to procure some slaves to work for them. And it's on this journey that is shipwrecked, is washed ashore on a desert island, and is the only survivor.
I'm alone. Not one sailor from the Esmeralda has survived. This country is uninhabited.
In the second part of the book, we have the form of a journal. And in this personal journal, Crusoe writes about life on the island, how also he uses the strength and is intelligent to overcome the difficulty of this situation, and how he eventually becomes the master of the island.
This is my island!
In this part also he meets a savage, gives him the name Friday, and he converts him to Christianity. It teaches him the rudiments of his language and culture, including how to use a gun to hunt animals for food, and later also to defend himself from attack. Then in the third part, that is the final part of the book, we are told about their rescue and Crusoe's return to England with Friday, that becomes his servant, and then his eventual journey back to Brazil.
Are you not a little afraid of coming back with me to civilization?
His master is not, Friday is not.
Like Defoe's other novels, Robinson Crusoe is written in the first-person narration, in the form of an autobiography. As in Moll Flanders, Defoe adds a preface, and in this preface he states that this is a real story from a real man, and that he is only the editor. This book has often been praised for its detailed verisimilitude, and this made the readers believe at first that it was an authentic account. Also, the style of the narrative is very matter-of-fact. This is because Defoe was following the principles that the Royal Society of the time was promoting. And it was that prose, writing prose should be just plain. During the story, we have no access, almost no access to Robinson Crusoe inner thoughts or feelings. He generally tells us only about his actions and about what physically happens to him. Just occasionally he reflects on religion questions, and this is because indeed one of the themes of the book is the Puritan idea that man's redemption on earth can only be attained through hard work and industry. Another interesting feature is the organization of the story. There is no real novelistic plot. Instead, Crusoe's journal merely tells the reader the things that happen to him in a diary-like sequence. And for this, formally, this book is unsophisticated, and this is different from the novel, for example, of Henry Fielding. But we can consider this book a classic because, as Italo Calvino was saying, this book never finished saying what it has to say. This novel has basically three kinds of interpretations. The first one sees it as a religious allegory. So we can see a Puritan tract about man redemption from sin. The Puritans had a very simple view of religion, and it was that man must save himself from original sin on earth. He has to regain the paradise that he has lost through his labor and self-reliance. The island on which Crusoe is shipwrecked is at first an island of despair, but gradually, thanks to his virtues of intelligence and hard work, he transforms it into a paradise of which he is master. As a Puritan, Crusoe's religious belief is really different from the Catholic one. He never asks God for salvation, but relies only upon his own labor. We have to think about the fact that Puritans, what we have inherited from the Puritan culture in the modern age, is very clear in American society. The philosophy of the self-made man is exactly what comes from the Puritan tradition. The second interpretation is as an economic allegory, because we can see these novels as an allegory of merchant capitalism. The mini civilization which Crusoe establishes on the island is similar to the society from which it comes. After that he has arrived on the island, he begins to regard this island as his own property. Then he builds himself an improvised house with a fence around it. He gathers wealth in the form of stocks of food and supplies, and he even gives himself an arduous work routine, though he has no boss, is completely alone. Also, when he meets Friday, the savage, he sort of employs him as a servant, and in this sense, Crusoe embodies the values of the self-made man. The third interpretation is the imperialist allegory, because Robinson Crusoe is a European that is recreating his own world in a non-European island. This can be considered as an allegory of British imperialism, because also it attempts to demonstrate that the white Christian protagonist Crusoe has a certain superiority over the native that is represented by Friday, and Friday must be civilized and converted to Christianity. Um, Robinson Crusoe sees that he has the right to be the lord and the master of the island and of Friday. Despite the fact that the people that he called savages, like Friday, were there before him, his logic follows the one that the British government had, that claims to have the right to conquer and control parts of Africa and India. And the natives of these countries were generally regarded as savages that had to be civilized. In Robinson Crusoe, Friday is not given a voice of his own. He speaks only when Crusoe teaches him English, and they have a master-slave relationship that reminds the one between Prospero and Caliban of Shakespeare. But unlike Caliban, Friday will not learn to curse his master.
Master?
Me, master.
No, 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 no.
There are several reasons to explain the huge success of this novel. First of all, Robinson Crusoe is an adventure story with an exotic setting which satisfies the taste of the people of the time, a taste that had been stimulated by the great British colonial expansion. Secondly, it's easy to read because it's written in a simple, clear style. Because of the wealth of material details that it contains, it was greatly appreciated by the rising middle class. Thirdly, the protagonist, Robinson, is a character with whom the reader could identify. Finally, continuous reference to the Bible, seen as a weapon against loneliness and desperation, give the novel a decidedly moral tone. So this was fashionable at the time, because in this time, religion played such an important role in individual's life. And this, of course, increased his popularity. Robinson Crusoe has inspired numerous film versions and variations too. For example, in 1954, we have the version of Luis Buñuel, The Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. After we have in 1967, that is more experimental, Tu imagines Robinson. The version of Buñuel is a more or less faithful adaptation of the original story, and Buñuel just inserts some moments of surrealism. In the second version, the French one, the situations of the protagonist become a platform from which to think how to rebuild our notion of society from zero. A more recent version is Robert Zemeckis' contemporary reworking, Castaway, of the year 2000.
I'll be right back.
Castaway, for example, tells the story of Chuck, played by Tom Hanks. He is a FedEx executive, and he finds himself alone on a desert island after a plane crash in the South Pacific Ocean. Castaway is interesting because it focuses on the more pragmatic aspects of the book, and it opens a critical dialogue with some of the darker themes of Defoe's novel. For example, the celebration of individualism, the rise of capitalism, and the so-called therapeutic value of hard work. Relocating the story in the 20th century with a protagonist that is American, Castaway reworks the issues of the original novel in a globalized market economy, giving the novel a completely new perspective. The film opening scene seems to refer directly to the Protestant work ethic present in Defoe's novel. As I told you before, this work ethic is the ethic of the self-made man. American values are built on the idea of the Puritanism, because the Pilgrim Fathers went to found the new colonies in America were Puritans. So, coming back to the film, Chuck's life is subjected to an exhausting rhythm, and he finds comfort only in material luxuries and the advantage that they bring to him. Actually, we can say that the work ethic that Chuck has, that is the one of the 20th century, is like to be addicted to work.
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. 50 seconds! When that clock hits 0, you send this truck. I don't care if Lennon himself comes out of his tomb with a priority package.
We know that in his life, he is bound to a complex structure of meticulously timed procedures.
We live or we die by the clock. That's how long we have.
And when he's washed out on the island, his lack of structure almost causes him to collapse completely.
Anybody!
And only the instinct, the primal will to survive, enables him to develop the skills that he needs.
Look what I have created! I have made fire!
While in the novel, the practical efforts of the protagonist are depicted as signs of his pragmatism, in the movie, Chuck's efforts are initially more tragicomic, yet his transformation on the island seems more profound than Crusoe's one. While Crusoe's imposes his worldview on his surrounding, Chuck is completely alone, and he has no company except a volleyball that it transforms into a companion by painting sort of a face on it. As a result, his 4 years on the island seems to change his way of seeing things quite radically. And though he finally makes it back to civilization, he has become a stranger to real rhythms and values. While in the book is Robinson that brings civilization into the island, so is not psychologically changed. In the movie, the last scene that we see, there is a Chuck on a crossroads that is uncertain about how to continue his life. I advise you to watch this movie if you haven't seen it yet, and then we can make a parallelism and a confrontation. Also, by the way, even the cartoon Madagascar takes the original idea from Robinson Crusoe. And we have many versions. We have also a Japanese cartoon version that is the island of the Robinsons, with a little girl that is a protagonist with her family. They are shipwrecked on a desert island, and it's called the Island of the Robinsons. The little girl is called Flo. I don't know if you know this cartoon. So that's all, folks, for the moment and for today. Study page 134, 135 from your book, and see you next time. Goodbye.
So how's the drink?
It's good.
That wasn't a very strong reaction.
Well, it's not a very strong drink.
Ladies and gentlemen, the pilot has switched on and fastened the seatbelt sign. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
Don't worry. It's gonna be over. We must have been at about 40,000 feet when it happened. In an air pocket. It dropped. But we crashed 1,000 miles off course. They're looking for us in the wrong place.
Stranded on an island. No one's coming for us.
This place is different. We all know it. We all feel it.
It's been 6 days, and we're all still waiting. Waiting for someone to come. But what if they don't? We need to start figuring things out. We need to figure out how we're gonna survive here.
What was that? Did anybody see that?
Terrific. My main concern is keeping us alive.
We need to get off this island.
You think any of us want to be here?
We're all here now. We can't live together. We're gonna die alone.
Do you really think all this is an accident? That we, a group of strangers, survived? You think we crashed on this place by coincidence? Each one of us was brought here for a reason.
And who brought us here, John?
The island.